So welcome everybody. This is What's Up For You, and it's October 11th, 2022. So while you're getting your questions in the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and just check in and just kind of see if there's anything generally that we can, that we can look at, or that could use a little support, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. So, yeah, I think right now we could all use a little heart. I mean, it's like with everything that shifts and changes out in the world right now, that just really breathing into that heart space and recognizing it, recognizing the power of that heart space, and kind of inhaling it in for yourself and then exhaling it back out, for the rest of the world, honestly. Yeah, just recognizing the power of that heart space. Yeah, so required, so needed right now. So anyway, okay. Let's just start there. Let's start with the questions and see where we're going. So.
All right, first question is, and this one was from last month. So they're talking about the monthly energy session from last month.
Oh, okay.
And so this person experienced, I had a big physical experience, and my glands and throat are inflamed. Is there a better way to prep for this big energy or something to do afterwards to make this more graceful?
So I know it's uncomfortable to have all kinds of physical stuff purge during an energy session or after an energy session, but it'll shift much faster if you just recognize that it's doing just that. It's just moving. We've got so much information that has been stuck in our physical bodies for eons, and sometimes in these energy sessions, especially like if maybe you've already always had something around communication or something around really feeling like you could voice what would support your growth, is what I'm hearing, then a lot of times that'll get stuck in the physicality, that's stuck in the glands. So just acknowledge that it's moving, it's leaving, because the minute we say to the body, oh my gosh, what happened, what's wrong, why are you doing this, kind of thing, it kind of solidifies that energy instead of keeping it moving. So that would be my approach to it. I mean, obviously, check it out and look at it from a physical perspective as well. But I would say that in this case, anyway, it's like you're really trying to purge from the physicality, kind of lifetimes of experience around around your throat, around vocalizing, especially what I keep hearing is what's supportive of you in your growth, like being able to say, this supports me, this doesn't support me, I'll take this, I won't take that. So anyway, that's helpful. Something really simple too, just that I noticed that helps break up physical things like that. Something as simple as like gargling with salt water, warm salt water, right? Again, it's not, it's something that helps that energy to move, but it isn't, you're not locking it into, something must be wrong with you kind of thing. So I hope that helps.
All right, this question is, my almost 4-year-old son is so full of love and light. It is heartwarming to observe and be a part of. However, he has moments of overwhelm and discomfort. Is there a form of an expansion? Is this a form of expansion of his heart? And any advice of how I can address and help him appropriately?
Two things here. One, this soul is, like so many of the kids that are coming in right now are, you might say from the get-go, they are anchoring a new frequency, they're anchoring a new energy on the planet. And so it makes sense that there are going to be moments when he's going to be in overwhelm. And quite frankly, you think about our own inner 4-year-olds. Our own inner 4-year-olds are often in overwhelm right now too, right? That sensory system just kind of gets, and so again, let's not make that a wrongness that he's overwhelmed. Let's make it an opportunity for him to learn about himself. I would say things to him like, I noticed that you're overwhelmed. I noticed that, I noticed that all of a sudden it got really challenging to hold all the energy that you're capable of holding or processing the energy that we know that you're capable of processing. And again, regardless of whether you're talking to a 4-year-old or a 44-year-old, just speak to him as if you assume that he's understanding everything that you're saying, because his consciousness is absolutely picking up everything. So we don't want to assume that because a child is in overwhelm, that something is wrong or bad with them or with you or with anybody else. It's just their way of learning how to deal with the vibrational information that they have access to, and the vibrational information that they're going to be, how do I say, like supporting on the planet. Yeah. So let's speak to him as if it's a road bump in his capacity, instead of that it's something that's wrong with him, because he's got a lot to do. And the more we support him, the more we nurture him, the more we love him through those processes. Another good one is, I'm here with you. I'm here with you as you go through that overwhelm. Yeah. May also be speaking to your own inner 4-year-old and whatever overwhelm might have been felt there. So when you speak to one, you speak to the other. Yeah.
All right, this next question is, I have a 5-month-old baby. Sometimes when I pick him up, his right shoulder pops. Is there anything energetically going on with this, and what can I do? I have had right shoulder issues, and so does my partner. And I don't want the baby to pick up our stuff.
Mm-hmm. So 2 things. One, I actually think that in this case, he could use some kind of adjustment, because it looks like in the birth process that there's something that kind of got out of whack. So there's actually, yeah, it's almost like it's not put in quite right. It's like the top of the arm is not into that shoulder socket quite the way it should be. It's kind of a little bit off. So I would chiropractic or something along those lines, some form of physical adjustment there would be really helpful. The other side of it is, the other side of it is, again, just for yourself and your partner, both looking at the ways in which you have shouldered the repercussions of the actions of others, is what I'm hearing. A lot of times when we're adults, we can justify or make sense of, these kinds of things. But I want you to put yourself in the position of the child within you that might have had to shoulder certain, shouldered the actions of others. Yep. And it's almost like somebody did something else, somebody did something, and you felt like it either became your fault, right? And so you shouldered that, or maybe you didn't feel comfortable with whatever that action was, and therefore you kind of internalized it and it got stuck in the shoulder. It's interesting because you and your partner are mirroring each other in that way too. You both kind of have had similar experiences in that way, or it looks like you have. So that's where I would go with it. But the other piece of it is to physically support this new one with that shoulder is also kind of you saying that, you know, you're capable of putting that back in place. You're capable of supporting that so that he doesn't carry that on. So both and there.
All right. I am currently experiencing hearing loss in my right ear, which I feel is temporary. Could you give some insight in what's happening energetically and how I can rebalance my hearing?
Well, it is temporary, I'll tell you that. Um, it's it's temporary, and it looks like um, this will sound funny. You know how they say, like, if you use like Q-tips or something like that, and how it pushes that and whatever's in the ear, it pushes it into the canal. It's almost like this is a metaphor um, for physically pushing certain information like deeper in. So how do I want to say this? Hold on a second. Um, Hold on. So it's like this. It's almost like, what have you heard? What have you heard in the past that you're still trying to digest? What has somebody said to you, or maybe what has not someone but something, you know, some other aspect of you said to you that you're still trying to digest, and because you're still trying to digest it, you try to get deeper and deeper in to that awareness. You're trying to suss it out. You're trying to figure it out, and every time you try to figure it out, it gets deeper and deeper. And so it's that same metaphor of, it's like it's pushing that energy in towards the literally pushing that energy in towards the eardrum, and it kind of almost has. It's almost like it has. The eardrum is not as mobile as it needs to be in order to receive information, right? And so it's energetic, but it's also almost taken on a physical manifestation, obviously, because of the loss of hearing. But it looks like it's at the level of the eardrum. So my question is just, you know, what is it that you heard in the past that you are still trying to digest? You know, it's like, I know I've had different experiences in my life where, you know, I can tell you where I was when somebody said something to me, right? Or they put that out there in the world, or they said something in such a way that it either was hurtful or whatever that was. But in that moment, it's like you spend the rest of your life trying to figure out why they said it or how they said it, or all of that. So that's the direction I would point you, because it is going to loosen up. I mean, you're yeah. As soon as this, as soon as you see what this particular piece is, you're going to hear it from a different perspective, right? You're going to hear it not from a place of harm, but from a place of maybe understanding where that person was at the time, or understanding where you were at the time. There's something around that piece, and then it just unravels. So, yeah.
All right, this question is, my son is 20 and has just dropped out of college, even though he was getting extra support and funding through an organization here in the UK. He seems to have issues processing anything that he is not interested in. This includes all issues around looking after his environment, money, etc. Because he is so switched on with things that he likes, it often seems that he is just being lazy. Can you offer me any advice with this? Thank you.
The children of the future, the children of now, your child does not need to be a quote unquote well-rounded individual like what we used to when I went to school, when, some of you went to school, this whole idea that we had to learn all of these different things, we had to be a well-rounded individual. The kids coming in, over the last couple decades for sure, and definitely the ones coming in now, the new kind, if you will, that it just doesn't apply to them. And so, and I know it can be challenging and frustrating if you feel like your kids aren't able to manage their own money and manage all of these other kinds of things. And what I want to suggest is, I'm not saying that they're not going to manage their own money or they're not going to do those other kinds of things. They're going to manage it based on what they really want to do here in the world, right? So everybody has to manage certain things in their life. If you want to live on your own, if you want to manage money, everybody has to do those kinds of things. But in this case, what he's really saying is, it's almost like, I'm interested in what I'm interested in. I'm here to bring that interest forward, right? I'm here to add energy to that interest. And as he adds energy to that interest, there will be other needs that he naturally and organically has, because he's trying to go out in the world with that, or because he is, because he wants to share it. He might have to have some social media skills, or he might have to have some PR skills, or he might have to have, who knows what he's going to need in order to take that information forward. And one of the other things that he's saying to me is that he has a little bit of a challenge in organizing information. And that doesn't mean that needs to be fixed. It's just a recognition that sometimes he needs focused time on what he's interested in. And then he needs someone to say something like, okay, you're interested in that. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Asking him, what does he want to do with that? Or what does he want to, what could other people benefit? How could other people benefit from what he's interested in? And as you just plant those seeds, then he might start coming and saying, I need help with this, or I need help with that. Yep. But right now, yeah, he does have a little bit of challenge, just like, okay, I'm here, I'm focused. It's almost like a savant, in some ways, where it's like, okay, I'm focused here. That's all I can focus on. I need a little bit of space to focus on that. I need everybody to kind of give me that space and back up a little bit. But I do need somebody to plant the next seed. Not tell me what to do, not tell me how to do it, but just plant the seed that this could actually be bigger than the interest that he has in it. It could actually be for more than just him. So, yeah.
All right. Next question is, I'd love to hear your intuition of how our evolution is affecting our ability to heal, upgrading new capacities coming online, etc.
Well, we're going to get to the place very quickly when we say shift, it shifts. We're going to get to this place in our own evolution where it's, where the moment that we notice that something is off or something is not quite in alignment with our joy, with our capacity to love, with our capacity to bring something to humanity, that energy is going to begin to shift. And we're in this interim period, you might say, where I think it's really important that no matter what comes up for any one of us, no matter what is arising in any given moment, that we not make ourselves wrong for it. We've been so conditioned through through eons that if we feel off or something's not quite right or we're emotional or something's gone, you might say, off physically, that somehow there's something quote unquote wrong with us, I really would highly suggest that we start shifting our mindset around that. Because if we shift our mindset around things being off, then we can really ask whatever that experience is, we can ask it what it has for us, what it wants us to know, what's trying to transform, because that energy is present. Yeah. And especially with, emotional body stuff right now, we have to recognize that we are literally releasing, 25,000 years, let's say, of information. So half of the information, most of the information, all of the information that's moving through our bodies right now, we have no idea where it started. We can't blame or shame ourselves for something that, number one, we didn't consciously take on, and number two, we have no idea where it started in the first place. So doesn't it make more sense for, as some emotion is arising, that we are gentle with ourselves, that we're loving to ourselves, we're kind, we're recognizing that it's something that we don't know where it began. So it seems like the best remedy, you might say, is to let it, Michael Brown always says, come pass on, compassion. Like, let it come pass through us. And it comes that way, it passes through us that way. The moment that we can let it be. Yeah, it's allowed to be there. It's allowed to be in our bodies. It's allowed to be felt. Overwhelm is allowed. Sadness is allowed. Panic, fear, all of it is allowed in our bodies. And the moment that we meet it that way, that energy has a tendency to start just dismantling. Yep. It's almost like, think about it like a structure, an energetic structure in your emotional body or your physical body, and you don't know where that structure came from. And if that structure comes up and we start, beating the structure, we start beating that, whatever that is, it's going to go into resistance, it's going to go into defense, it's going to be re-traumatized, you might say. Whereas if that same energetic structure comes up and we hold it in our hands, we hold it in our hearts, we meet it with some degree of compassion, more likely that that's going to melt, right? That's literally going to melt out of our fields. These are all precursors for our capacity, you might say, to say shift, and it shifts. Yep.
All right, next question is, I am working with two girls, siblings, and they are processing a lot of heightened emotions and get triggered by one another. How can I best support them and myself and nurture sovereignty for all?
I think let's go back to what we were just talking about. Give them permission to feel what they feel. Give them permission to be triggered. Have a conversation with them about what is being triggered. And even if these kids are not as able in the moment, or to use communication in a really fluid way in those moments when they're agitated or at all, one of the things I would just say is, like, reflect back to them what you're noticing. I'm noticing that you're really agitated. I'm noticing that you feel angry or that you feel sad. I'm noticing that when you get triggered, you lash out, or I'm noticing when you get triggered, you retreat, right? Let's just bring some conscious awareness to the emotion, and let's give full permission for them to feel that emotion, because the only reason that emotion ever gets stuck in any of our bodies is not because of whatever the incident was that created that feeling. It's that we didn't get to feel the feeling. We didn't actually get to have somebody there with us allowing us to feel what we were feeling, or we weren't able yet to give ourselves permission to just feel what we were feeling without moving into some level of shame or guilt. So honestly, I hope that as we move forward, that the schools of the future, or the quote unquote education of the future, has this as its base, that we're allowed to feel what we feel. Yep. This is the very thing that has created so much discord, so much dis-ease, disharmony, because we've all been conditioned to believe that, we're not allowed to feel what we feel. Yeah. So give them permission. Yeah, just looking to see if there's anything else. I'll tell you too, they're both doing a we could also see this as the gift that it is, because they're both trying to release each other from earlier belief systems, earlier traumas, you know, sometimes great friends or siblings or lovers or whatever. They're so innately able to, parents, all these deep relationships in our lives. They're so able to trigger just those right places. And again, if we see the trigger, if we see the emotion as something that is required, yep, it's required to move us into another state of ourselves or a deeper awareness of ourselves, then we can give permission for it, because we want it, we're allowing it to be there. We may not want it to be there, but we're allowing it to be there. And the other side of that is that, if we can see it from the vantage point of this exchange, this turmoil, if you will, is required because it's building something in both of those girls, and you too, by the way. So,
All right, this question is, the shadow defense in the emotional body, which I know is an illusion, still seems to pull my energy from creating. As empathic, I know I am picking this up from others. Any suggestions on how to keep my energetic boundaries? Thank you.
so I have a question first. So what's the energy around the belief system that the shadow is an illusion? Yep. So, and the reason I'm asking that is because it may be the very reason that that energy can't help you to create a boundary, right? So the way I want to, let me see here. So as an empath, and you're feeling you're feeling the energy of the environment or those that you're interacting with, or collective humanity at large. It could be any of those. So that shadow work, that the shadow aspects of self, are those aspects that are absolutely trying to rebuild a solidity for you. So when we, hold on a second, okay, so let's go at it like this. When we address the shadow aspects of ourselves, and when we address those, when we meet the shadow aspects of ourselves with love and compassion and understanding, right? The shadow is almost always a younger version of ourselves, right? That didn't get a need met, didn't get, right? So shadows aren't bad. Shadows aren't wrong. That energy, even when we say the shadow self, it's like the dark, it's almost like we're calling it the dark one or something like that. No, the shadow's not bad. It's not quote unquote dark. The shadow part of us is just simply the part of ourselves that we were not able to integrate earlier on in our lives. And so we draw that energy forward. We carry that energy with us so that at some time in our development, we will be able to turn around and address that shadow. And so we could also say at some time we can turn around and address that child that felt like she had to hide herself, like she had to put herself in the shadow, right? So as we turn that energy in and we start meeting that part of ourselves with love and compassion and appreciation and acceptance, or even just allowing her, as we were saying in the last conversation, just allowing her to feel what she feels. She's allowed to feel that. She starts building strength, right? She starts building capacity. She starts offering, she starts bringing to light what creates a boundary for her. Yep. So if we call the shadow an illusion, I mean, anybody who's had their shadow comes up feels pretty real in that moment, right? It's like, and I get what you're saying about the illusionary nature of all of reality. There are those elements too. But in regards to this, it's almost like if these shadow aspects or these unintegrated child aspects of ourselves, if we turn around and say, you're just an illusion, you're just an illusion, you don't really exist, right? We're negating what they're actually needing, which is to be met, which is to be loved, which is to be supported through those feelings. And the moment that we turn around and support them, they're like, oh, okay, I can add my piece back to the puzzle. I can add my piece back to the totality. And then you are firmly in your body, right? You're firmly connected to more of who you are. That in and of itself creates an energetic boundary, right? Does that make sense? Hoping this is helpful. I would just catch it, all the ways in which we negate the power of our shadow, because it's a pretty darn powerful thing, and it's amazingly powerful when it comes back in its integrated state. Yep, I mean, nobody's going to mess with you. I promise you, from that place, right? And this is why we want to do this kind of work. So let's not negate her. She's not an illusion. She's real, and she's powerful, and she wants to be seen, and she wants to be heard, and she wants to be loved. Yep. And all of that's well within your power to do. And then just notice how other people interact with you, and notice what you pick up and don't pick up from other people as far as that empathy piece.
Okay, this question is, I have been having strong sensations around my heart. Is this contractions or opening, or are they waves of both? How can I support this opening process?
Well, it definitely waves of both. And again, as we see both aspects of ourself as required, yeah, as necessary for our own evolution, then we don't get so concerned when there's a compression or an expansion, either one. And I think for you, it's really a metaphor for all kinds of different things in life, that again we'll see something that feels positive as quote unquote good and something that feels negative as quote unquote bad. And what if both are working for your evolution, right? This is a theme right now too. It's interesting because in the New World Portal, we've been talking a lot about this there. We've been talking about it also in the integration series. This whole idea of really releasing, we get to release the idea of polarity of good and bad. And I know for some of you who are in the New World Portal, you've heard me tell this story, but I'm going to tell it again because it was so impactful for me at a time when I was really challenged, lots of emotion coming up. I didn't know where I was going to land. I didn't know. I had moved out of one house and I wasn't sure where the next one was going to be. And at first that felt like quite an adventure, but it soon became an opportunity to just purge all kinds of things that I didn't even know I was afraid of, just it all came up. And at one point I was just, I went and sat on the beach in California. I was staying with my daughter at the time. And as I was sitting on the beach, I just closed my eyes to meditate. And I saw this big being of light come down and stand on the sand in front of me. And I was like, yay, you're finally here. It's like, here comes the good stuff kind of thing. And I was so excited. But right after that, this dark being came and sat, put his feet right down on the sand. And then there were multiple energies of that light, dark, dark light, all of this. And I was watching how in my own reality, in my own awareness, that, the light being was the good one and the dark being was the bad one. And I was, and I almost made that dark being mean that, like, okay, what's still left to come up in me that might be dark, right? It's like this scary feeling when that energy came in. And then all of a sudden, one of them stepped forward and they said, we see no difference between the dark experiences of your life and the light experiences of your life to help you evolve. We just, would suggest that you see it the same way. So that regardless of whether it's a challenge or whether it's a big opening, it's both of those are attempting to support our evolution. And when we start looking at it that way, we stop blaming ourselves for whatever we're blaming ourselves for, and we start looking for the message in the experience. Yeah. And again, all of this is precursors. Everything we're talking about today is a precursor to getting to this place where we are coherent in our capacity to receive everything as a gift. Yeah, coherent in our capacity to receive everything as a gift. Yeah. I think I got derailed a little bit, but I hope that answered your question.
All right, this next question is, my 6-month-old baby sleeps in bed with me. I'd like to start getting him to nap and sleep in his own. I haven't felt comfortable just laying him down and leaving him there. Any suggestions?
Can you leave him there? Can you let him? Yeah, I would. I'm looking at it from both angles here. Hold on just a second. Okay, come on, Jesus. I honestly, I'm not a child development specialist or anything along those lines, but what I will say is energetically in this case, and I really feel this about so many of the children coming in now, that so many of them are, they come into the world and then they're like, okay, here, somebody else takes care of them, or somebody else is interacting with them. And all I want to say here is that that bonding that you're doing, I mean, we're talking 6 months, right? We're talking about a 6-month-old. And so what I would say is that bonding, that connection, that holding, that loving, that appreciation, that nurturing, it's almost like, what I want to say to you is, if somebody was holding you at 6 months like that, if somebody was nurturing and supporting you at 6 months like that, how amazing and wonderful that would feel. And it doesn't mean that you can't give this beautiful little one opportunities to be asleep on his own. But to me, it feels like there's, like, the piece that we want to really look at here is, are you trying to get him to sleep on his own because somebody has told you that he should sleep on his own? Are you trying to get him to do that because you're exhausted, as new parents often are? Ask yourself that question first. Why am I actually trying to get him to sleep on his own? And if it comes up as some kind of I should do this for some kind of reason, then maybe just ask yourself the next question, which is, what is it that you really enjoy? What is it that you really want for yourself and this new beautiful baby of yours? Because that's going to help you make some of your decisions from a place really of love, from a place of your own inner knowing, instead of somebody else's expectation of you. Yeah, I really would love to see a lot more little ones just being snuggled on until they don't want to be snuggled on anymore. Kind of snuggled up until they're like, I need my space, leave me alone. Because to me, that would be a more developmental shift, natural developmental shift, instead of this whole idea of what we think we're supposed to do. Yeah, and there's a big piece in this for you too, because you trusting what works for you, and it's so, this is going to be a lifelong gift that you give each other. Yeah, to be in that level of trust of yourself. So yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see. I keep getting guidance to trust my visions. I sense both physical and inner. Could you give me any further insight, dimensions to this guidance?
Back to what we were just saying with the question before, it's, regardless of, the trust piece is the most important part. The visions, inner or outer, are in some ways secondary. But at the end of the day, being able to trust yourself and trust what you are getting, and understanding that what you are receiving for you. You are receiving so that you develop this deep inner trust. Yep. And so internal visions, external visions, secondary for sure. The trust piece is the most important part. And just like trust in any physical relationship, trust in a physical relationship is built on communication and connection and clarity, those deep interactions. Also, just be aware that you're allowed to not just receive a vision, but you're allowed to ask about that vision. You're allowed to ask that vision to even show that it's in your highest and best interest. Show that it's in the highest and best interest for what you could bring forward in the world, or what you could understand about the world and reality. So have that conversation go both ways, for sure. Yeah. I used to always say to the collective consciousness of the kids, especially at the beginning, when they were showing up in mass, and they would say something, and I go, yeah, no, I'm not saying that, or I'm not doing that, or I'm not, until we develop this relationship, right? And some might say that, oh, I wasn't trusting them, or I wasn't trusting myself. And that might be true. And there could be all kinds of reasons why that might have been true. But what I was really looking for is to build a relationship with that consciousness, so that I knew I could trust it, so that when I said something to somebody else about what they said, that it was coming from a place of us proving ourselves to each other, right? We developed that relationship, just like you would develop a good relationship in the physical world. So I would suggest that piece. Yeah. All right. So one more.
I asked and we don't have one.
Oh,
So.
okay. Cool. All right. Well, then we will just take a look at what's, hopefully these things have been helpful, and just a little bit of a shift or a way of perceiving things a bit differently. And I'm acknowledging and noticing within myself, I mean, I always love when I say to somebody something about doing integration work, or how we've all been conditioned, and people go, no, I'm not conditioned. I'm like, I've already gotten through that part. I'm going, okay, it's a nice idea, but just by the virtue of the fact that we have lived any number of incarnations, and by virtue of the fact that we just come into this reality over and over again, or other realities for that matter, those environments impact how we see the world. Our experiences impact the way we perceive reality. And at some point, we are invited to take responsibility. Again, responsibility in my world is the ability to respond, right? We're invited to take responsibility for what we want to start creating. Yeah. And the interesting thing about creation is that the moment we say, okay, I'd love to create, if I were to say I'd love to create information or resources so that every child on this planet understands that they're allowed to feel what they want to feel, and whatever. The moment any of us says, this is my vision, this is what I want to see come into being, the very next thing that happens is that any of the conditioning that we have that would prevent us from that vision, it rises up to the top, right? So this is the reason why we don't want to see what rises up to the top as bad. This is the reason why we want to meet what comes to the top, because our vision's dependent on us our visions coming to fruition are dependent on our capacity to meet what arises when we set that vision. Yep, I've set this vision. This is what I know is possible. This is what I would love to live in as a physical, mental, emotional experience. This is what I'd love reality to be like. Yep, this is what I know is possible. The minute you say that, the next thing that comes up is anything that would prevent you from actually expressing that. being that, knowing that. And so we want to turn around to those parts of ourselves that show up right after that vision statement. And we want to tell those parts of ourselves that they're welcome too. We need all of us to create that vision. Yep. So as we meet those pieces of ourselves, we have compassion for them, we love them, we're curious about them, we ask them questions. Just watch the energy of your vision grow. Watch your capacity to express that vision out in the world just become exponentially more powerful. Watch yourself have the boundary that you need in order to hold that vision, right? So this is all an inside job, right? When they say everything that we have or everything that we require is within us, it's not a lie. It's just that half the stuff that comes up that is part of the requirement, we're still trying to push down and say, no, 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 you stay in the shadow. I want to go over here and just do this. We're missing the whole point that we can't throw out half the equation when we're here trying to create. Yep. So we want to be present to that half of the equation that we've pushed into the shadow. Meet it, love it. Yeah. It's not coming up for no reason. It's going, I want to join. I want to add to the mix. Yeah. So, all right. Any questions at the top of that?
Just when somebody submitted, what if what comes up is unconscious and we are not aware of it?
Well, everything that comes up was unconscious, but if it's coming up, it's trying to become conscious. So let's look at it like this. So, on any given day, I can be moving through my world and, feeling however I'm feeling. And then all of a sudden, something might come up. Maybe nobody else is even in the space with me, but something just rises up and it feels uncomfortable, right? I don't know what that is. I don't know where it came from. I can make up all kinds of stories about it. But to me, anyway, if I just turn around, turn my focus around and go toward it, it's like all of a sudden, let's say I have a huge flush of anxiety or a huge flush of sadness that comes up. What most people have been conditioned to do is, okay, I'll go take a walk, or I'll go have a drink, or I'll go do something that minimizes that feeling. All I'm suggesting is, regardless of what it is, if we turn around and start just being curious, it's like almost turn around saying, I can be with you. I can be with you. I don't even know where you came from, what you're doing, I don't know any of that, but I can be with this feeling of discomfort in my body. You're allowed, basically what you're saying is whatever that is, it's allowed to be there. You're allowed to be there. And we're big enough, we're mature enough, we've evolved enough to turn around and actually hold that part of ourselves instead of just try to do something to get rid of it, right? The moment that happens, that energy will dissipate, or you will be given some awareness. You will be made conscious. Consciousness will happen around that experience, right? If there's something that you need to know about that experience, it will show up. It will make itself known. Yeah. I think I'm going to add one thing here for your consideration, and it's kind of a jump beyond what we're talking about right now. But if we can really consider that we are not our emotions, we are not our thoughts, we are not our bodies. Yep. If we can literally kind of just put that out in the ethers of our consideration for, the next few days, that what's moving through us is literally that. It's moving through us. It may be us from another time and space. It may be a collective. Who knows? Right now, we are expanding so much that we're all literally merging into a oneness like never before, right? So what if what's coming up in your emotional body is just that, something that's coming up in your emotional body? It's coming up, you're the one feeling it. You're the one that is maybe the one that is ultimately capable of turning around and supporting it and hugging it and loving it and letting it be there. And because you do that, it dissipates that energy within the collective. What if something that's coming up in your physical body, right, is something that you can address and be present to, that you can love and support through its process? And as it starts to dismantle, it's dismantling not just for you, but for the collective. Yep. Thoughts are the same way. I promise you can do this exercise today. Get in your car, drive somewhere in your community, either maybe a very affluent area or maybe a very poor area, you know, and just drive into those areas, park your car, and sit there for a second, close your eyes for 5 minutes, and just watch the thoughts that you think for 5 minutes, just because you moved into an environment that you may not be typically used to being in, right? The collective consciousness of that environment is seeping into your mental process. It's a great way to prove to yourself. I mean, go to a playground and hang out with a bunch of kids. You know, all of a sudden we get light, we get airy, we get, ooh, this is fun. The trees are greener, the sun's brighter. You know, you go into an impoverished area, and all of a sudden you might be worried about money. You might be worried about, you know, you might be thinking about, you know, not enough, you know. It's a really good exercise to do. Yeah. So, okay. I hope that's, yeah. Thank you guys for your questions and your comments. And we're evolving exponentially. And to me, anyway, this is the turning point. This is the turning point about how do we actually meet ourselves? Yeah, how do we perceive ourselves? What is ourselves? What is that? Yeah. These questions are really great ones to ask because we're getting ready to just expand, 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 expand. And we don't have to wait for the rest of the world to figure it out to start that expansion. So don't turn around and look at them for your support because they can't do it yet, right? So support you. Yeah, support yourself. Yeah. All right. Love to all of you guys, and I'll see you next time. Okay. Bye.